It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DiCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It drops tomorrow at 6 a.m. Actually, Thursday at 6 a.m. Today's only Tuesday. I feel we're a little later on in the week. I'm wrong. It's only Tuesday. Andrew DiCecco is here. The Inside the Birds podcast in the offseason drops Mondays and Thursdays at 6 a.m. They have plenty of other all-season podcasting Q&A tomorrow. And it's brought to you by Dr. Lyle M. Back. For everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery, go to ilovelyle.com. Call 856-MAKEOVER or Dr. Lyle M. Back. Proud sponsor of Football at 4. All right, we got a lot to dive into on the eve of official free agency. There has been a lot of moves. We'll get Andrew's opinions on many of these moves and get his thoughts on some of the things that have happened here over the last couple of days. Andrew, what's going on, my man?
Hey, Mike, how are you, man? Just trying to keep up with all the free agent action that's going on.
Well, you don't have to keep up too much with the hometown team because they have not dipped their toe in the water as of yet. And I don't know, we'll start off there. Do you anticipate, this is one thing I opened up the show with. People are frustrated that the Eagles aren't doing anything. And I said, that's because Roseman spoiled people for the last 10 years that they were always involved in free agency. Do we anticipate that they will get in on that second or third wave of free agency?
Yeah, I think so. And this is like you said, this is one of those years where, it would be foolish to expect the Eagles to have been players on the first day or in the early stages of free agency, given that they don't have the means to sign some of these guys. However, the second wave, I do anticipate them being active and being able to plug a hole with some one-year prove-it-deal type players, such as a Tyrell Williams, who has some history with Nick Sirianni, maybe a Nick or a Malik Hooker, the safety who's coming off a torn Achilles. You can get these guys probably on some, some low-cost deals, and they do have some upside. So I would look for players like that, kind of like what you saw in 2017 in the late stages when they got LeGarrette Blount, Patrick Robinson, Chris Long, and some of those guys.
I think the interesting part here, as you mentioned, is they still need to get under that cap. They are still not at that number. Now, we know they will because they have to, but I guess, the anticipation is not only will they get under it, they'll be under so that they can add a couple of these under-the-radar moves.
Yeah, they really have to, and that's kind of Howie Roseman's forte. But fortunately, he has, I guess, a couple of weeks or maybe 7 to 10 days to really do that before that second wave takes place. And they really have to because you can't fill all these holes. There's so many holes permeating throughout the roster that it's just not feasible to address all of them through the draft, which is why it's going to be a 2 or 3 year rebuild in order for them to be significant contenders in their conference and in their, in the playoff picture. But yeah, they have to. And like I said, those are just a couple of players that I anticipate them, showing some interest in, given the ties to the coaching staff, and they're both players are coming off injuries. So, I think that those are the kind of value deals and the upside deals that you're going to have to work with if you're the Eagles.
One of the value deal they weren't able to get done is bringing back Jalen Mills. Now, I know I saw some people on our Facebook page saying good riddance and, beat it. And I'm thinking, man, this guy was a starting player on a team that won the Super Bowl for you. I know for all the people who hate Roseman out there, he got this guy in the 7th round, a 7th-round guy who was a starter on a Super Bowl team. He gets a 4-year deal with the Patriots yesterday. I guess the question would be, how the heck do they replace this? This guy played 55% of the snaps at safety. He had to play the other percentage of the snaps over at corner. They almost need 2 guys to replace Jalen Mills. I'm not saying he was a Pro Bowler by any stretch here, but this was a very valuable player for this organization.
Well, you're right, and that's one of those moves that's going to be a bigger loss than what many anticipate, despite what you've seen on your Facebook page and some of the comments that you see on social media. Jalen Mills was a valuable player, and you knew what you were going to get in Jalen Mills. He's a 7th-round pick, former 7th-round pick, for crying out loud. They got a lot of mileage out of Jalen Mills, and you look at what he brought to the secondary. There wasn't a position in the secondary that he couldn't play. He was a very smart player. Kind of had the attitude of that secondary. He was like that leader that got everybody. He knew where to be. He knew where to line up. He got everybody fired up. And he was a good locker room guy. And that's hard to replace. Now, when you look at what the Eagles have at safety now, it wouldn't surprise me. And they showed some interest in that nickel corner from the 49ers, which leads me to believe that maybe they have plans of moving Avonte Maddox back to safety. He played some safety as a rookie in 2018. And he's another one of those guys in the mold of a Jalen Mills, not quite the size of him, but he can do a lot of different things. Obviously, it didn't work out on the outside. And if they don't just want to pigeonhole him as a nickel corner, he's proven that he can do some things at safety. So maybe that they have that in the back of their mind. They still need to add either a low-cost veteran, and they're certainly going to have to draft a safety as well, because I don't view Kayvon Wallace as a viable starting option. I see him more as a third safety and a role player.
What about Maddox as back at safety and playing there full time? Like, would you advocate him just going back and playing safety? I don't want to say full time. He's never done it full time. He filled in a couple of years ago due to injury. But do you foresee that Maddox would be a better fit at safety than he is, I guess, at slot? I definitely a better slot corner than he is an outside corner. I think we found that out. But if they say, look, we got to use you at safety, is that something you think he could do?
I certainly think he can. He has the football intellect to do so. He's better at it gives him time playing back there. It gives him time to react. And he's a smart guy, and I think he'll be able to do that. He has the athleticism. He just got exposed a lot on the outside. And I think he has more to offer the defense than just playing in the slot. And I feel like just having that move that there were, Jalen Mills is gone, and and Rudy Ford's gone, which I didn't anticipate happening on the first day of free agency, but they really are bare bones at safety. So like I said, right now, whether they have it planned or not, they may have no other option but to count Avonte Maddox as a safety while they look to retool the position. Yeah. I think he can do it, though.
Yeah, I know that he might be an option right now. I just was wondering if you thought because some people looked at Mills and felt, he's probably better suited to play. Like, is Maddox, in your opinion, better suited to play safety, or do you still feel that because I thought he had a pretty good rookie season in the slot. I don't think he played very well on the outside last year.
Right, and Maddox, I believe he goes about 185, no more than 190. He's going to have to add 5 to 7 pounds to his frame if he's going to be able to do that. He's not afraid of contact. He's not afraid of hitting. He plays the ball well. He's played the ball well in the air when he was playing safety. He did some things that he covered a lot of ground, which is, kind of for a rookie getting thrust into a role that he wasn't really accustomed to playing. That stood out to me a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be a high-end safety? Not by any means. No. But I think he can be serviceable.
Not to mention he went to Pitt, so he's got that going against him as well. All right, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. You mentioned Rudy Ford. They lost him yesterday as well. Jalen Mills out the door. What do you make – I'm really interested in your take on this Zach Ertz thing. So last week we hear, all right, the trade could be coming in the coming days. Well, now the Eagles are not in a rush to trade Zach Ertz. Ertz is frustrated. Now, Mike Garafolo claimed today that if the right deal does not materialize, the Eagles are fine bringing him back. I mean, now he says that's unlikely, but how do you read into that the Eagles are not in a rush to trade Ertz, and that, if the right deal doesn't happen, well, we might bring him back, that they're not looking to release him? Because a lot of people just feel like, all right, they can't find a deal, they'll cut him because they need the cap problems. Evidently, Ertz isn't a guy that they're calculating into helping fix this cap problem.
Well, of course, the Eagles wouldn't mind having Ertz back, but having Ertz want to play on the Philadelphia Eagles when he's grown impatient and clearly doesn't want to be there is another thing entirely. But I mean, yeah, they're weighing their options right now. They certainly don't just want to part ways with a player who they feel and who he still can play at a decently high level given his age. Last season was the outlier in his career. I do think that he can go back to being the Zach Ertz of old with a new offense, kind of playing to his skill set there. But, he doesn't want to – I mean, I think a team like the Chargers, who lost Hunter Henry, I think they would be a good spot. I think the Eagles are kind of weighing their options right now and seeing what shakes free, and they're looking for the right offer. But, I mean, same thing with Carson Wentz. I don't think that Zach Ertz is going to physically want to come back here and be a good soldier after last season and how the last couple of months has kind of unfolded. It's kind of hard to foresee that happening.
Yeah, I know that the anticipation that they can get a third or a fourth round pick seems unlikely. Now, Ertz apparently, according to the report, Andrew, has said that, hey, if I get traded somewhere, I don't need a contract extension. I'll play on that deal there. If that's the case, and he's willing to play on that deal, if you're the Eagles, do you just keep him?
Yeah, you keep him, but Zach, and while he's never been one of those guys who's going to cause a problem in the locker room, you wonder if there's going to. Last year, he looked disinterested at times, and you wonder if that's going to boil over into this season. You know, if there's a nick or a bruise, is he going to want to really be out there? Depending on how the season's going, you run the risk of him getting. Remember last offseason, there was he was very vocal. I believe it was one of the training camp practices with Howie Roseman, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Those type of things might become more prevalent now if you're putting him in a situation in which he does not want to be in. So, I mean, I think you take what you can with him and you just move on. As much as he's done for the franchise, it's just best for both parties to part ways.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Ertz thing, like, this is interesting because if he said, look, I'm willing to play for $8.25 million, because last year, as you mentioned, he wanted a new contract. They couldn't come to an agreement, and he wasn't happy about it. Now, if he's saying, I'll just play under this deal for another year, would he be willing to do it here? Well, then the take is, well, this team's kind of rebuilding. Do they need Zach Ertz? And I guess at that point you say, all right, if you want to play at that number, we'll bring you back. Do you try to trade him in season if he's playing really well? Or, you know, hey, he's a part of why we surprised a lot of people this year. You know what I mean? Like, you have Jalen Hurts. You want Hurts to succeed. This makes it a little cloudy because I felt to me like Ertz was as good as gone. And I'm not saying I feel like, but I'm about 85% that he's gone. But I feel like this has opened the door at least a little bit. But it's like, does it make sense to bring him back with where this organization is? And a lot of that goes back to, well, then you want the young quarterback to have a guy like Ertz to have the throw to. So there's a lot of pluses and minuses, I feel like, on both sides here with this.
Yeah, and you mentioned the door being cracked open. I mean, there's always that selling point that they could say, hey, you're going to be featured in this offense, this new offense with Nick Sirianni, and you're going to be a security blanket for Jalen Hurts and, be a focal point.
Yeah.
So there's always that sales pitch that you can give to them if you're running out of options and you realize, there's a chance that we might not be able to get rid of this guy. So if we're going to do that, let's reevaluate and kind of give him the sales pitch, and maybe it'll kind of mend the fences, at least just for a year. Or like you said, if he does well, performs well, you maybe can trade him before the trade deadline.
All right, Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. Let's look at a couple of things that have happened, let's say, inside the division here. What do you think about the signing of Ryan Fitzpatrick in Washington and where that puts them? I mean, this is a team that had tremendous defense last year. This is a team that, makes the playoffs last year with Alex Smith playing quarterback. Now you have a full season of Ryan Fitzpatrick potentially being your starting quarterback. Does that, to you, make Washington the favorite, or a healthy Dak, does that put them at the top of your NFC East list?
Well, I'm really high on Dak Prescott. I think he's a great player, but I think that Ryan Fitzpatrick gives the Washington football team that quarterback that's going to he's a little bit more, he's above where Alex Smith was. He's certainly better than Taylor Heineke, as well as Taylor Heineke did at the end of the season. But he's a veteran. He's played in a million different systems, pretty much at least over half the teams in the league, I believe, at this point. But, I mean, he's adequate enough that he can lead the team, and he was a missing piece to me. I think he's going to kind of propel them to be the class of the NFC East. And, all he has to do is play decent football like he did with the Dolphins and many of his other stops, and the defense will be – you get a lot of those guys like Chase Young and some of those young players that will have another year of experience. And I think that's ultimately going to be what carries them. But now they have a quarterback that can kind of bridge the gap should they add a young guy that will be able to take them pretty far.
Yeah, I to me, the Washington football team, they have been devoid of quarterback talent for essentially the last 20 years, other than one breakout season from Robert Griffin III. They have been horrible at that spot, and I think Fitzpatrick at least finally gives them a veteran player who can give them some sort of credibility, and that makes them, to me, a legitimate possibility in the NFC East. So I like that move a lot for them. Let's talk a little bit about what the Giants have done today. They agree with a one-year deal with John Ross. Now, Ross is a guy who always kind of came up with the Eagles, a speed wide receiver. But, man, he has tanked out terribly in Cincinnati. But do you like the fit with the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, Dan Jones kind of is what he is at this point. I don't know that – I think that John Ross can certainly help their offense if they find ways to get him the football. But, I mean, he also hasn't proven anything. He's a speed guy that struggled with injuries. He struggled catching the football at times. There's been times where he looked like he was on the verge of having a breakout. Many times I predicted him to have a breakout, and it just looked like it was going to happen and never materialized because he got hurt. He had to go a long way as a route runner. I mean, it's sure, why not? Bring him into your offense, add a little bit more of a vertical element to it, and see what happens. It certainly can't hurt, and they really need some speed on that offense too. So we'll see what happens. It's an intriguing signing.
Yeah, I mean, is Ross a bust? Can he not play? I mean, has he just been constantly hurt? I mean, is it Cincinnati? What do you make of why the 9th pick in that draft, 2017, he's essentially giving you no production?
Yeah, and that was solely based on speed. Those are certain traits that propel guys to that first-round status. Once you see that he ran a 4.2, they become enamored with the speed. But you have to look at the offense that he came from. You have to look at his limitations. He wasn't the biggest guy. He wasn't running a prolific route tree. He didn't catch the football very consistently, but he ran a 4.2. And I think a lot of teams, in the Bengals case, thought that they could plug him into their offense and he was going to be a Deshaun Jackson type of player, and that just never happened because there's so many other variables that go into becoming a successful receiver at this level that he just didn't have, such as some guys just don't have it between the ears. You can have all the physical attributes that you want, but if you don't have it between the ears and you can't stay healthy, that's the perfect storm. So now maybe he turns the page, goes to another team, and maybe you can sort of get some sort of production out of him, but he'll never live up to that first-round billing, that's for sure.
Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4, is off-season's here. We will continue to look at free agency and what's happening. Let's get your take on what New England's plan is as they bring in Hunter Henry today. They also went out and got Mills yesterday. They brought in Nelson Aguilar today. Janu Smith they brought in. So, obviously, this is a different plan for the Pats this offseason.
Yeah, and I was really surprised that, obviously Janu Smith I'm really high on, and he's a number one tight end in this league. And then to add Hunter Henry to that, well, then now you have the two tight end sets of yesteryear when they had Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski. And then you add a guy like Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, who I feel was a really underrated signing, made more money than I thought he would on the open market, but he has a lot of untapped potential. I thought he was underutilized with the 49ers. They're adding pieces around Cam Newton. So now, I mean, last year the Patriots probably had the worst receiving core in football. I believe Jacoby Myers was their top receiver. They just didn't really have a whole lot out there. Now you're surrounding him with talent. Go figure. It's what quarterbacks need to be successful, many of them. And they're investing in the offense. And I think Bill Belichick saw Tom Brady win the Super Bowl, and he saw how prolific that offense was, and him having to miss out on the big dance, and for the first time in a while, he's so used to being a playoff team. I think he was like, okay, well, now we're gonna have to put a stop to that. You got to start surrounding Cam with players and really make a push, and that's what you're starting to see.
Yeah, I know. Interesting signing, bringing Cam Newton back there. We'll see how that all works out, but he's got a ton of extra weapons from what they didn't have a year ago. Aguilar, the two tight ends. It's almost like they're going back to the Gronk Hernandez style of offense, that two tight ends. And we've talked about it a lot here, Andrew, with the Eagles. If they were to draft a guy like Kyle Pitts, you put Pitts and Goddard, which obviously if you brought Ertz back, I think Pitts would kind of be out of the mix at pick 6, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, if they bring Zach Ertz back, it certainly makes it kind of pointless to take a guy like Kyle Pitts and invest that 6th overall pick in another tight end, because then you have 3 of them. How are you going to get them all on the field? You don't want to waste a year of Kyle Pitts. I think that there's still going to be tight ends, and I've written about this. There's still going to be other tight ends that you can get during in the later stages of the draft, even on day 2 and 3, that will really make an impact on an offense. Maybe not right away like a Kyle Pitts would, but there'll be certain areas where you can get a guy, draft him to be your 3rd tight end. He can ultimately become your 2nd tight end because there's some guys there with some upside.
All right. Obviously, the official opening of the new league year is tomorrow at 4:00. The Eagles need to get under by tomorrow. So we will find out what they do, how they maneuver this thing to get it done. I'm kind of interested to see how they finish this whole thing out. It was kind of a interesting exercise for Howie Roseman so far. It seems that he's done okay getting them to this point. I think they're about $9 million left to go to get under that salary cap. For more, go to 973ESPN.com. And, of course, football at 4 tomorrow. Jeff Mosher's here. Thursday, Adam Kaplan will be in the hot seat. We are off the air on Friday, so Andrew will be back on Tuesday when the league year will be underway. So the second wave of free agency will be here as well. Andrew, enjoy the rest of the day, pal. Always good to catch up.
Of course. Take care. Talk to you soon.
All right, Andrew DiCecco at DiCecco NFL. And he, like August, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Football at 4 is brought to you by Dr. Lyle M. Back. For everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery, go to ilovelylback.com or call 856-MAKEOVER for Dr. Lyle M. Back, proud sponsor of Football at 4.